Has someone you care about ever insisted you cut their hair, even though you've never cut hair before? Or perhaps your children needed a haircut, and with the budget being a bit tight for the month, you trimmed the bangs, and they ended up looking like a well-worn toothbrush. Why not learn the right way from a professional? Besides owning and managing her own salon, June Larson has taught haircutting classes and has had extensive education both in America and Europe. June believes anyone can learn to cut a good basic haircut. She's taught a lot of different classes to people who are not hairdressers, people just like you. And now she shares her expert knowledge on video. Before you know it, you'll be cutting hair with confidence. Now, here's June.
Hello, I'm June Larson. And you know, doing hair doesn't have to be a mystery that only hairdressers know. In this video, we will take it step by step, and you will learn it as simply as you learn to sew or to cook. Except taking lessons is most important with hair, I would think, since it has to be worn every day. I've put together 4 different cuts to give you a variety of techniques, showing you various forms of layering and outlining. This will give you the skills to give a good basic haircut or make a professional cut last a little longer without being scared to trim up the bangs. Like anything else, once you've learned those basics, you can develop your own techniques and maybe become a little more creative. I suggest that you watch the tape all the way through, then go back, pick the cut you want to start with. But for your first cut, I suggest you don't use a child because it's hard for them to sit still long enough for you to take the time that you will need. Have your model in front of you, part off the hair, but pause the tape before you take any cuts. Check the angles that you need to. Fingers, hair, comb, because once it's cut, it's gone. So take your time, and it might feel a little slow at first, but remember, learning something new takes time. So be patient with yourself, and you will get faster with more haircuts. Now I'd like to show you the equipment you will need. I suggest you have a pair of professional cutting scissors similar to these. The most important thing, though, about your scissors is that they are very sharp. You can't cut hair with dull scissors. And I suggest you don't use a large pair of dressmaking scissors such as these because they will be way too bulky and you won't be able to cut hair easily and comfortably. You also will need a comb with wide teeth at one end and narrow at the other. And it shouldn't be any longer than 7 inches or wider than 1 inch because it will be too bulky. You also need some kind of a clip. Either one of these will work, but the most important thing about your clips is that they hold the hair firmly. If you're going to be doing a lot of men's hair cutting, a pair of clippers would be very helpful. You can also buy the kind that have a guard on the end. If you're going to be doing a lot of sideburns, the guard is very helpful. It keeps you from cutting the sideburns too short. And I'll show you that on the man's haircut, how to use those. You also need a spray bottle to keep the hair wet. There are 5 important points to remember. Hair needs to be clean, wet, and tangle-free. The hair is elastic when wet, so don't stretch, but hold it firmly. Picture the head as a cube for fullness and weight lines. Clean sectioning is important at all times. And check the angles before you cut. I'd also like to show you how to hold your scissors. You put the bottom ring in your ring finger, the top ring in your thumb, and then you can palm the scissors. Take your thumb out of the top ring, put the scissors in your palm, hold the comb, and that will be very comfortable and you will comb the hair easily that way. And you can do that quite quickly without having to put the comb in your teeth or your pocket. This is my model, Jessica, and we are going to cut her hair first in the 1 length bob cut, which is the perimeter cut, and then we will be going into long layering by combing the hair back and pushing it, and that hair will always fall in a natural part. Her hair parts right about in the middle because that's where every time I comb that back, push that, you can see that natural part fall right in there. Need to check that. It's good to always check to see how their neck grows, how the hairline bounces around, see if it's got a certain growth pattern. You put your thumb at the top of the ear, part down with the wide teeth of the comb, and let that hair drop away, forward. Come back and comb that hair away. That's the easiest way to part, if you use the wide teeth of the comb. And you part down to your thumb. We'll do it on the same thing on the other side. We're going to part her hair off in 4 sections. For the front section, her hair fell in a natural part right into the center. So usually I use their nose for the guideline. Use the wide teeth of the comb, come straight up from the nose, part back to the middle of the crown. On hers, her hair fell into a natural part as it was. For the back, we'll use the bone at the base of her neck. Move your thumb up to the base. Use the wide teeth of the comb. Part down to your thumb. Push the hair away. That way you have a nice, even part. I found in my classes it was difficult for people to part off the hair sometimes. Use the wide teeth of the comb. And we're going to part off for our first guideline cut. We're going to part from the center over to the side. Use your thumb for the point of reference. Part over to the thumb. Twist that hair and get out of your way. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Starting with the center section, we're going to cut from the center out. And when you comb down with the comb, to get it to be really smooth and paper-like, you turn the comb as you go down and follow the comb with your fingers. And then you stop where you're going to stop. In this case, I'm going to stop right on the bone line. Let that hair drop. And I want you to stop right at the point where you're going to cut. If you stop above the point where you're going to cut, the hair will get all messed up and you won't know where you are. So turn the comb, follow the comb with your fingers, stop right where you're going to cut, get those fingers right exactly where you want to make that cut. And have one finger on top of the other. You notice I'm not holding the hair like this or like this. I'm holding the fingers one on top of the other, following the comb down with my fingers, getting that hair just like paper. I'm not pulling. I'm only holding it firmly. I'm not stretching the hair. Get it right where you're going to cut it, and I want you to cut right on your finger. If you put those scissors right on your finger, you're not flipping the hair out. You're not going to cut out here and go clipping away. What you want to do is make nice, precise cuts all the time. So get your scissors in there right underneath the hair, that bottom blade, cut right at the cut line, right on your fingers. See how much hair's left? You can't even see the hair. That's how closely I'm cutting to my cut line. That's how closely I'm holding my fingers and my scissors to where I'm cutting. And see the hair? You don't have to worry about all these little hairs flipping all over because it's nice and tidy and neat. Our next section will be a little bit of a new section, a little bit of the old section, because this is your guideline now for these whole baseline haircut. This is your guideline. And you cut from the old section to the new, and you'll cut with your fingers. Your fingers are going to be going around in this direction, so you want to make sure your fingers are straight. Check your finger line. One on top of the other. Cut right on your finger with the blade right on your finger. Let that drop away. Okay. If you don't know exactly where that hair is going to lay, best thing to do is have the model hold their head straight up. Check it before you cut. Just hold your head straight up and we'll check and make sure that that's going to be straight. This is about where we're going to want our fingers to be our angle. The hair's getting a little bit dry. To make sure you can see this, I'm just having Jess hold her head a little bit to the side. We have a little bit of the old section and some of the new section. We've got our fingers straight with the line that we're cutting. This is the way we're going to be going around the head. We'll cut straight across. See how close I am to my cut line? My fingers are right there on the cut line. Okay, we'll be doing the same thing, working from the center out on this line. And I'm not over-directing the hair. I'm not over-directing it this way. I'm not over-directing it this way. If you do that, your cut will always be messed up, because you'll never see your guideline. See how I lose my guideline there? When I over-direct the hair, all of a sudden the guideline changes. So you have to make the hair, comb the hair the way it grows out of the head. Straight down, turn the comb. This time, we're going to be cutting from the inside out. The reason for that is it's really easy to cut in this way and get your scissors going up at this angle. That way the hair starts to round up this way. So start cutting from the center out, because you'll get a much more accurate cut that way. We'll cut just a little bit of the old section, a little bit of the new. And now if that corner is a little bit long, you can go back and just trim it off. We want to check now to make sure that both sides are even, because this is our guideline for the whole rest of the haircut, for even the sides. So if this isn't even, we can correct it right now. It'll make the whole rest of the haircut go much faster and much more even. That's why we spend a lot of time on that first guideline. And you can check it like this, pull both sides down, hold it in your fingers, check and make sure that both sides are even. Also, you can have your model look in a mirror if you want and see if they think it's even, because they are going to be looking at themselves differently than you see them. Our next section will be small enough to see this guideline, but large enough so that we'll have some, it's usually about 1 inch wide for your second section, just so you can make sure that you see that guideline cut, and you'll see why here in a minute. Remember, we're parting over to our finger with the wide teeth of the comb. And I switch the comb around. I'm using the small teeth to get the hair just real nice and smooth. We want to keep it just like paper. We'll be doing the same thing, turning the comb. You can see how important that is to turn that comb, because if you come down like this, the hair doesn't stay nearly as smooth, and you see a lot more hairs that way. If you comb down, turn the comb, it makes the hair so smooth. And when we're cutting on the guideline like this, we want to cut right on the underneath guideline that we just made. We don't want to cut into it. We want to cut on it. Now, if you can't see your guideline, it's because you have either gone too far down with your fingers, or you stopped too high up, or your section is too big. You might have to go back and resection it. Also, if you're combing down with the comb, and you're turning your comb this way, it makes the hair real nice and smooth, and then turn it straight up just at the very end, just before you get to the baseline. And that will separate the hair enough for you to see the guideline. I'll show you this on your next section. Comb the hair, turn the comb down, turn it just slightly, and you can see it separates the hair that way. See how it separates that hair? And you can see the guideline, it's right underneath here. You can see the guideline that way. Turn the comb, cut right on that guideline, comb down, switch the comb just at the very end. See that guide? We always work from the middle to the outside. Okay, find our guideline underneath, turn the comb sideways, come down, turn it so you can see your guide. Stop right on the guideline. Cut into the guideline, not on it. Turn the comb. Try not to make too many cuts. In other words, try not to chop, 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 chop. Try to make as make your cuts count. Try to cut as few times as you can so you get that nice even line. If you have to, that's fine. Because if you're holding the hair firmly, not stretching but firmly, and it's just like paper, it's not going to hurt it to make a few extra cuts if you have to, but it just makes it faster, and it's something to remember as you get faster cutting hair. Now we're going to cut our left side. All right, now we're going to part off the crown. Now the crown is a little bit different, mainly because as the hair gets to this point right up here, it starts to lay, as the head is rounded, it starts to kind of lay rounding into a rounded form. Comb the hair loosely with the wide teeth of the comb. And let the hair just lay loosely now. It's real important to cut hair the way it grows, because that's the way it's going to lay when it's dry. The reason is if some hair is dry and some is wet, it won't get cut accurately because the dry hair will be shorter. Excuse me, the dry hair will be longer, the wet hair will be shorter, because the wet hair has more elasticity than the dry hair. So be sure that the hair is kept evenly wet. Okay, see how the hair starts to grow down this way and this way on the sides from the crown? The crown is actually seen like a pie shape. This is the way the hair grows. It grows right from the center, starts to fan out, just like that. I'm going to say a lot of things over and over again, but it's because when you're first learning to cut, you have to remember them. It's learning anything new. You have to think about those things more than when they become more automatic. Part off for the side, the hairline has a natural fall line. And it also, the hairline starts to recede right here on the side, and it starts to recede a little bit. That's where the hair starts to actually fall to the side and to the front. So that's a good place to part the hair. And we're going to part off to our center part on the top. We'll keep that nice and tidy and keep that out of our way. And you can take a larger section for your first section on the sides because you don't have as much hair as you do in the back. You've got a lot less section here. It's a lot smaller. Now the ear protrudes, so you need to remember to not pull the hair down tight over the ear, because if you do, when it's dry, that will bounce up and this will be shorter in here. So remember, when you're combing the hair down around the ear area, that you comb it loosely. You don't comb it and pull it tightly. See, the hair starts to grow down, so we'll just let some of that back hair fall forward, comb it loosely with the wide teeth of the comb. Just watch the hair, how it falls. We're going to be bringing the hairline guideline cut right around to the front. Same level. Find a little bit of the old section, get a little bit of that front section. Make sure your fingers are straight. My fingers are angled not up, not down. They're angled right even with your chin. Just get down and eyeball it, check it, and make sure that your fingers are straight. You don't want to make a wrong cut. Remember what I said, once it's cut, it's gone. Now is a good time to check and make sure that both sides are even. The way I do it is to get right in front of them, comb that hair down, pull a little bit of that front section, about an inch, pull it down, hold it in your fingers. Just check and make sure that that's even. Now's a good time to check that, because this is your guideline for the front. Once this is even and straight, then you can go ahead and finish the rest of the haircut, which we'll do. We'll pull down the remainder of the hair on top from the center section. Just go ahead and pull that down, let that fall. Now we're going to comb loosely with the wide teeth of the comb again. Jessica's haircut, we're going to cut a separate bang. If you wanted to leave this haircut the way it is, we could, you'll see Emily's haircut at the end, and she will have a one-length bob cut on straight hair. And you could leave Jessica's hair just the way it is if you wanted to. Also, if you wanted longer bangs, we would part off a larger amount, and you could use this guide for a longer bang, and it would blend with the whole back of the haircut. Now we're going to go into layering later, so you can see how that front, if it was longer, I'll show you how it would be longer and it would blend in with the back, and this whole front would be a lot fuller and a lot longer, and she could wear it to the side or wear it however she wanted to. She wouldn't have to wear bangs. To make sure that those bangs are parted off in a V shape. The reason for that is the hair, like I said, where the hairline, we're going to part off in a V shape right where the hairline starts to recede. The reason for that being that the hair starts to grow down here. If you part this off in a square like this hair would be blunt cut and it wouldn't blend with the sides. It would be part of the bangs, it would be part of the side hair. So you always want to part the bang area in a V shape. This will help you to do any bang trimming at all. Remember to keep that hair neat and tidy. We'll just clip that out of our way so we won't get any long hair in the bangs. Usually with the bangs, what I suggest you do is hold your finger right at the bridge of the nose. Not up here, because remember the hair is elastic and it will stretch. And it's very easy to get bangs too short. So we want to make sure that when we comb it down, we hold the fingers right at the bridge of the nose. That way you can always go back and trim them when it's dry if you need to. Jessica's bangs are already a little shorter, so what we're going to do is just even these up. And you start in the center again and work out. When you cut the outside of this area here, you want to make sure that you're cutting in a curvature of the head. You don't want to cut up. She'll have a U-shaped bang otherwise. You want to make sure that your fingers are nice and straight and going even slightly angled down. It's better to get them too long on the sides than too short. So make sure that you angle those fingers perfectly before you cut. Just trim off the ends, make sure your fingers are angled right. Okay, we're going to layer them, and on Jessica's hair we're going to have the bangs very short on top. Now, in layering, if you see the head as a box, as a cube, layering is going to be straight up or straight out. And you'll always have this cube in mind. So her bangs, if we want them very short and standing up, we're going to want to pull the hair straight up, take a center section. The way you take a section is to part down with the comb, follow that comb on the other side with your fingers. You put your head down. Just follow that comb on the other side with your finger. Then just pull that up. Just sort of push the other hair out of the way. It doesn't have to be a perfect section on the top. But you want to get it nice and even. You want to make sure that you push the other hair out of the way, get it nice and even. Pull that straight up. Have them put their head up so you know exactly what you're doing. You don't want to pull it back here. If you get it back here, she's going to have really short hair and it's going to stand straight up. If you want that, that's fine. But you want to make sure the hair is standing straight up. The way the hair grows out from the head, standing straight up, make sure that section is even too. It's not over here, and it's not over here. It's straight up. And this is your guideline. The guideline we just cut at the front will be your guideline for the top. The shorter hair in the front is your guideline for the rest of the layering on top, and we're going to be cutting all the rest of this off. I'm angling my fingers slightly. If you want it really layered, you can just hold your fingers straight up and straight across. The head starts to round here, so remember you don't want to cut into this too much because this will stand up. And especially on her hair is going to be long layers, so we don't want it to get too short on top. The way you can see that your fingers actually are one of the most important tools in hair cutting because your fingers are the guide. They show you where to cut. In Jessica's case, what I'm doing is cutting her bangs separately, and then her bangs will be like a whole separate haircut. Then the long layering will be another whole separate cut. Which is good to learn because a lot of times you need to trim bangs. Now you notice on the side, I didn't come out like this. If you come out like this, what you do is you end up cutting off a whole lot of hair that shouldn't be cut off because it'll end up being too short and you'll have a ledge hair. And you want this hair to be a little bit thinned out, a little bit layered out so it'll blend. So when I held this up, I hold it straight up from the head. You can see my finger angle. It's straight up, the hair's straight up. It's not angled this way and it's not angled this way. Okay, for the top layering, what I'm going to do is take a small section right in front of the crown. We're going to use this for our guide for the whole rest of the layering on the top. What I want you to do is pull this forward and picture where you're going to have this layering. If you want it really short up here and you want it to sort of blend with the bangs, say you have really, really short bangs. Bangs are really short. You might want to angle this slightly up and have this fairly short. So what you might want to do is cut your section just below the bang. If you want a little longer layering back here, you're going to want this section just a little bit longer. You can pull this out, figure out about where you're going to cut it, see about where that layering is going to lay. This section will lay right about here if I cut it right here. So just check that. Now on Jessica's hair, I'm going to want it fairly short on top. So we'll pull it down just to the top of the nose. Cut that off. And now we've got our guideline for the top of the layering. You don't want to cut any more than about an inch section right in the center. Okay, we're going to take another section right at the top. What we're going to do is the section I just cut. First of all, I'm going to clip these bangs out of the way so we'll make sure that I wouldn't normally do this, but I'm going to do it for teaching purposes because we want to make sure that you know that this was a whole separate cut here. If this was long, we would just blend this with the back. Okay, this is a section I just cut, and you can see it as you pull the hair up. It's a very small amount. What you want to do is make sure you leave enough weight at the bottom of the hair. Weight means the amount of hair that comes down to a point, like in this case the neckline. So you want to leave, I'm going to want to leave enough weight down here to make it full. If we layer this a lot in the cube idea, if we come across and layer this straight across, what that is going to cause is a lot of shorter hair here, which will come down and kind of thin out that weight line. And I don't want to do that. I want to leave that full down there. So pull this straight up. Find that guide, angle our fingers up. Cut that off. We'll comb down that same center section. Comb the hair up. Find the section that we just cut, and you have to angle your fingers in the same way, or you'll lose your guideline. So get those fingers angled just exactly the same way you angled them before. And And you know if you're angling them right because you can see your guideline. Make sure the hair is pulled straight out from the scalp also, not to the side. We're going to take another section right next to that one. And we're going to find our guideline again. Now this guideline is going to be exactly the same way you found that neckline guideline. And the way you're going to do it is pull that up, and you can pull the hair away, and you can see the guideline sticking out there. See that short hair? That's our guideline. So you hold your fingers up and turn the comb again. That way the comb will separate the hair. You can see your guide. Pull your fingers right up to where you're going to cut. Hold the hair firmly. Angle your fingers and cut. And I'm taking pie-shaped sections, and I'm parting off. I'm not parting very large sections because in layering it's difficult to hold a lot of hair in your fingers and hold it in the right angle when you're holding it straight up from the head. Angle your fingers. Okay, we're working from the center out again, and I'm going to only come to about 1.5 inches from the center of the head for our first section at the top. Now I'm going to come over on the other side, do the same thing on the other side. We've already cut this area and layered this. So what we're going to do, because the head, remember, the fall line is a natural pie shapes, what we're going to do is come down, find a little bit of that old section, a little bit of new section, take a pie-shaped parting here, and be sure, this is especially important on the sides, be sure you pull the hair straight out from the head, not in front, not in back. We want the hair to come straight out from the head. The hair is always straight out. We'll pull the hair up. Hold in your hand what's comfortable for you to hold. Let the rest drop away if you have to. Angle the fingers. Let that drop away. Come down just a little bit farther so we'll get the rest of that section. Pull that up. Angle your fingers. And you can see your section under there, and you want to cut right down, keep cutting right down to that section that you angled before. Because you've already got the angle right. You just want to keep cutting that same angle all the way around. And you're taking pie-shaped sections from the center of the head, pulling the hair straight out, angling your fingers up. And you notice I'm not chopping into the hair. What I'm doing is placing the scissors right next to my finger. Take a little section over the ear. We'll be pulling this straight up. Only we're going to be over-directing it just a little bit. When I say over-directing, then is when I mean to pull the hair back or forward instead of straight out from the head. The reason we're going to over-direct this is the hairline thins out naturally. And when that happens, you need to leave a little bit of extra hair there, and we'll go back and just take off a little hair later. But right now we want to over-direct that just slightly back so we'll get a nice even layering on top. We'll pull that up, find our guideline, angle our fingers, part that front section now, part that down, over-direct it just slightly, pull your fingers up, angle your fingers, go ahead and cut that off. That way you've got a nice even layering. Now we'll do the other side. Remember, learning something new takes time, so be patient with yourself if you're getting tired about now. Sometimes I switch the comb. Sometimes I switch to wide teeth if I need to just comb the hair smoothly without cutting it, but I always change to my narrow teeth when I want to get a nice, perfect cut. When I'm ready to cut, then I change to my narrow teeth. Okay, now we have our long layered cut with bangs. And remember what I said, if you wanted longer bangs, you just would have made them the same length as you made the top, this first cut here, and it would have all blended and she would have had longer bangs. And now we'll dry her hair and see how she looks. Okay, here we have Jessica with the long layered cut, dried and styled. And isn't that pretty? And you did it. We did it.